I think the great question, if you see fentanyl, why revisit fentanyl and why do we need another opioid? We've got a whole range of drugs that we can work with. We're going to talk about in that part, the anaesthetic continuum. We are looking at that, trying to use the lowest potency of drugs and to combine that with sedative drugs to get effective immobilization. So I think that's a continuum, and if you understand that and don't just want to work in one of the categories, that will give you a lot more options. I think our traditional options was always to use a very potent opioid as the biggest part of our darting cocktail, add a tranquilizer and then get a good result. We've got some opioids available. Unfortunately, that too we haven't got available in South Africa, but those we've got, and they are going down in potency. Very much different. If you look at different publications, it's not so 100% on what the differences is in the potencies, but I think clinically we can see what's happening in the animals. This is quite important, the relative potency of the drugs that we are using. If you look at that, your relative potency of the fentanyl is quite a bit lower than the etorphine that's sitting up there and the thiofentanyl. And that is what's interests me on in a specific scenario where we always aimed at higher potency drugs to get a quicker downtime on a specific animal and know what's happening in the opioids. In the combinations, we can get into this category to use that as our primary inductive agent. You can also go and have a look at the receptor binding half-life and the plasma half-life. That gives you a good indication on the safety of the drug, but that will just apply to the specific conditions. What is it that you want to do? Your opioid selection, to me the principles is to use the least potent opioid to get as little as possible side effects to get a positive or acceptable downtime. There's different, we need to have different opioids or different cocktails to have a procedure appropriate anesthesia, because everybody have another goal or a different goal for a specific immobilization. Being much more into the reproductive side, I look at having the animal down, very still, very non-responsive, a deeper anesthesia for a longer time, and somebody that just need to do a translocation, I've got another goal, and this will give us a bit more of that. It must be reliable, repeatable, and reversible. Available, I think that's also important to all of us. It must be safe for the veterinarian and safe for all the people working around. Going back to the history of the use of fentanyl, the publications I could find was all published in the 70s on the use of fentanyl, and at that stage it was combined mostly with xylazine. In rhinos it was combined with etorphine. I've talked to Pete Rogers, and they've in national parks had a constant 1 milligram etorphine, 30 milligrams of fentanyl for white rhinos, and they've used that for years. And the question to all of these people was, why did you stop using fentanyl? And everybody said, I was so happy with fentanyl, but there was two problems. The first problem was Johan Creek, DMS, it's just too unsafe for the operator. And the other problem, what Richard gave me this morning, what Roger gave me, is the concentration of the fentanyl. The fentanyl, basically per gram, you've got 6.57 milligrams of active in there, and they just haven't had the means to make it in a more concentrated. Am I still here? Yeah. So that was the main reasons why people moved away from fentanyl, and just because more potent opioids like etorphine became available. Later, talking to Alex, I think you're the oldest, you're looking the oldest in the whole room. He's showing me a nice sign there. Yeah, Alex used it, but that was the same problem basically, the volume, then the unavailability, and that was the only reason why I'm not stopped, was fentanyl just became unavailable to us through legislation or politics or whatever what the reason was. That's the publication in 1973 where they used 50 milligrams to 80 on kudu with 350 xylazine. I mean, that must have been an incredible volume. They worked at 30 milligrams per mole at that stage, but all the reports was that the animal was, the anesthesia was just very, very good. Being not in the wildlife industry anymore, I do 99% of my work producing embryos, and I must say it's very nice to be back at the wildlife working group and not at Ruvasa, although I'm a bit worried about all those empty seats. Maybe we are getting extinct. I needed to revisit fentanyl. I've always had this fascination about fentanyl, and we've used it in impalas. For us, with just etorphine available, it was just this fantastic drug, and why are we not using it anymore? So I had to revisit it, and I couldn't do it on my own because I'm not darting enough animals. So I put up there a lot more experienced wildlife veterinarians to buy the drug from VTech. I went to Johan, asked him to see us, and within a month or two, I received my first 100 milligrams per mole fentanyl, and it's not DMSO based. So, and within a month later, I've received the 200 milligrams per mole fentanyl. So veterinarians could go and buy it, and we put up with Jarno, put up a database at VTech and just ask everybody to report back on the immobilizations. We talked a bit about the dosages that we're going to use, and in that group, I was the older one that used the most fentanyl, so Alex, you're off the hook there. And then we just reported back. So this is basically just reported cases of experienced wildlife veterinarians that just give their indication of what's happening with the immobilization. So we adapted the dosages as we went, and reported back. Difficult to get wildlife vets reporting back, I must say, but thanks to Tinus Lochenberg, Willem Burger, Alwyn Venter, that loads of animals and reported back on them. When we started looking at the dosages, we had to get a comparison between and the fentanyl on potency. So looking at the clinical cases, theoretically it should be around 15 milligrams of fentanyl that's as potent as thiofentanyl or atropine. And I think clinically, after doing quite a bit, think that this is what we're having with the VTech product at the moment, that 20 milligrams of fentanyl, the potency would be around the same than 1 milligram of thiofentanyl or atropine. In comparison, we could very nice pair it with the alpha-2s or any other of the drugs that we are used to handle. That in the traditional protocol, you can also use that in the basically, let's say, the traditional protocol with the that will give you a 2.5 ml dart, still doable, but with the 200 milligrams per ml, we can fit in a dart for an adult buffalo bull darting from the helicopter in a 0.5 ml dart. So that is very convenient. Just something about the availability. I think I touched on that, so we can carry on. Advantages of fentanyl, why fentanyl and why not your more potent opioid? I'll get to that in one of my next slides. It's definitely got that shorter mu receptor stage and got a perfect...
Keeps breaking up.
Keeps breaking up now. Yeah. Okay. It's got a perfect combination with the alpha-2s, and that's just I long ago predicted that we will stop using potent opioids or needing potent opioids for immobilization, and I think this is paving the way, and it also might give us some leverage to stop illegal trade of drugs to non-vets, but we'll get to that. Disadvantages of fentanyl, maybe a slightly longer induction time. It's safer than other potent opioids to the operator, but it's a well-known addictive drug to humans, and it might pose a risk to veterinarians in the sense that somebody will want to steal the drug off you, but I think we've got the same with all the more potent opioids anyway. I don't think that will really become a reality. Might lead to possible desensitization with repeated use, but I don't think we repeatedly do repeat immobilizations on the same animal that will be come into play, and it's another opioid that might be misused by non-vets. To me, my personal preference would be to use it in a low opioid combination where your opioid section is a lot smaller and you've got your alpha-2 sedative, and I will change that opioid from a more potent opioid to fentanyl. Basically, with the more potent opioids, you've got a very strong dose-dependent mu receptor binding and some binding on the kappa and sigma receptors. That will give you your sedation, but it gives you the respiratory depression, the rigidity and dysphoria, which is the negative effects that you want as little as possible of. With the fentanyl, also dose dependent, so if you overdose an animal, obviously the one is as bad as the other. But with a lower receptor affinity, and that's reported in some animals, but mainly in humans, and we don't know about the relative potency in all the species. We can clinically see what we see, but I mean, that's still something that needs to be researched. And it's, the receptor half-life, I think, just makes it a very much a better drug where you'll probably get less of the negative effects, but you still get your sedation. But on its own, you can't have that, and you'll need the alpha-2 part there, where with the alpha-2, when you're combining it with the alpha-2, that also gives you as a part of the sedation, and they're working they're potentiating the sedative effects, but the negative effects will also be your respiratory depression. Positive to me is the muscle relaxation. Negative is the peripheral vasoconstriction and the increase in blood pressure, which is only not lasting through your whole procedure. You've got that reflex bradycardia. There's a lower mitochondrial demand because of the alpha-2, and all over a lower metabolic rate, which to me is very important and gives you, if you get the sweet spot dosage-wise, all this is dose-dependent, and I mean, we've shown in a study in Buffalo where you don't get to that, but we need to get to the 100% sweet spot for the sweet spot dosage-wise, and then we'll achieve all that principles that I've talked about there. The main thing is still you need to shoot the dart in the right area. I've hit the tail twice in that Ungulate that I tried to use it on, and then it's not working very well. I'm just going to go through the basically reported cases to the database. We decided to do the ungulates and not work on rhinos, but Tinus Lochenberg ended up doing 3 rhinos. 15-year-old male rhinos. He used 30 milligrams of fentanyl, 8 medetomidine, and 20 a zap. Induction time was 10 minutes. His duration of his anesthesia was 20, and he just said it's an excellent standing sedation. This is the exact animal that Tinus started, one of the 3, and he needed to treat a wound, and I mean, me advocating the use of butorphanol in white rhinos and stay away from potent opioids, I think this might be still a better option than using any other potent opioids in rhinos. Buffaloes, this is a buffalo bull, a 55-inch bull I've darted 2 weeks ago, and that was done from the helicopter. And you can see typical reaction. This was, 6 minutes 48 after the dart. It's a half-mil dart into that animal. It's a very big bodied bull as well. And it just went down there just over 7 minutes. That's the bull. And I've used on that bull 25 milligrams of fentanyl, 6 medetomidine, And in that one, I used midazolam because I had to do a fertility test. So that's another thing. The animal must be deep enough and relaxed enough to take a electroejaculation. So that went very, very well on that specific animal. That's a bull dart from the helicopter doing a semen collection, electroejaculation, and that was quite a good one. The total buffaloes that we've done, there's actually a few more after this last week, but the females that was done, I think, by either Alwyn or Tinus, 2-year-old females, they 10 milligram, 2.5, and 10 a zap. Now, this is the animals that you've done, David, on the Buffalo Analytics course. He's bad at reporting back, I must say. I don't know how he's going to run the whole Buffalo automated movement situation. So, but yeah, that's the animals that David did with on the course there. 6 minutes downtime, so that's 10 milligrams of fentanyl, 2.5 and 10 a zap. David, you were happy with what you saw there. Okay, so I've used it as an anaesthetic to do this surgery on Ungulate. I've also darted some Ungulites and yeah, worked very well on them as well. Springbok, this is one that I've treated a few times. A 2-year-old ram, 15 fentanyl, 2 medetomidine. Induction time 3.5 minutes. I darted him yesterday again for a leg amputation, and there the downtime was also just around 4 minutes. Kept him under for the whole duration, maybe an hour yesterday, and the SpO2 hovered 96 and up. So this is one of the only animals I've had the pulse ox on, and yeah, just fantastic. Yeah, my least favorite species, Nyala. I've had nice reports back from Tinus about Nyala, 15 milligrams fentanyl, 6 medetomidine, 10 a zap, 5.5 induction time. He was also had some variation, so I think we still have to work a bit on the dosage for Nyala. Sable, we've done 60 plus in the database on sables. For the 2-year-olds, 10 fentanyl, 3-year-olds, 10, adults, 10, 2-year-olds, 2 medetomidine, 3-year-olds, 3, and adults, 5. So quite an easy dosage for our older guys to remember. And 5 to 8 minutes downtime. Most of the animals that was reported on was darted from the helicopter. So Tina said on the database, great, predictable sedation and recovery. So one of the species that's really reacting well. Roans, it's one of those more difficult species for us. 10 to 15 fentanyl, 4.4 to 5 medetomidine, and 20 a zap. Fentanyl provided highly effective immobilization from the helicopter. Most of those animals, most of that 55 animals was done by Tinus also, and most from the helicopter. Uniform results, so it seems in them, this is one of the animals that was done by Tinus. And you can see you get that typical nice and flaccid animal that you can easily load, easily handle, have semen testing done on that specific animal. So Impala, 10, 1.5 to 2 Hyalase in this instance from Tinus, that he've done all of these animals from the helicopter. So I added some hyalase. So it was 10 fentanyl, 1.5 to 2 medetomidine, and then added hyalase. In these animals, 10 to 15 fentanyl, 2.5 to 3 medetomidine. Induction time, 5 to 8 minutes. Great, effective across all groups. In one of the videos he sent me, actually said he'll never use any of the other potent opioids on Impala again. He'll definitely go with fentanyl. So that is what I also found in years back. Lechwe, that was just to give you indication on the dosages of Lechwe. Slightly deep but stable. Kudu, Alwyn Venter, that one that he lost, it ran away just after he darted the animal. He found it 200 meters further, 20 minutes later, and that is what is, I've missed that video, sorry. He sent a video on that animal. Animal was just seemed to be a perfect anesthesia. The animal was lying sternal. It could still lift its head and walked on stimulation. So this was also reported on the VTech website or data sheet. This Willoughby's I did 2 days ago. I was actually quite in a hurry. I had to go and collect semen from this animal for freezing, preservation of semen. So I darted him with 20 fentanyl and medetomidine, didn't put any zap. Downtime was 6 minutes. I was busy with the animal for 38 minutes. I did a semen collection, and that was just an excellent anesthesia. This was about 20 minutes in, and that's me stimulating it. You can see the electrostimulation. You can see that animal is just sleeping like a baby. I mean, you know that traditionally, if you stimulate the animal, that rigidness of the muscles, the animal want to stand up. So that was the reaction on stimulation. I mean, usually you use a whole army of people to keep the animal down. So that's what is it. This guy was on his phone the whole time. So that was quite practical in the end. On that same farm, I had a meeting set up with HO and Ulf, and I was late. Sorry for that again. But typically, after I've done the Willoughby's, he wanted to quickly dart the Gemsbok. And I decided, just let's go extreme high on this animal because I'm in quite a hurry, then I can maybe still make it. I used 50 fentanyl, 5 medetomidine, and 15 zap. And as it happens in our industry, you get a curveball when you're in a hurry and you want to go with very high dosages, 5 minutes, right? And what happened there is I put that dart in. The induction time was 4 minutes, 10 seconds. And that is what I saw when I got to that animal. I mean, it was just, I think the hematocrit was maybe 15, infested with wireworm. So an amazingly debilitated animal. And I had to load the animal. This was when I got to it. This was just more than 4 minutes afterwards. So you could see that animal was down and out, quite bad condition. We moved the animal to another camp took us about 30 minutes. And when we got there, that animal's respiration was 100% stable. So yeah, it's just one case here and there, but the indications is, and it fits in with the history, that this fentanyl is amazingly cheap, amazingly safe for the animals. Overall performance, I'd say it is all cases rated by the veterinarians that use the drugs was good in all cases basically. Sedation was described as perfect in roan and excellent in rhino. Safety, respiration was rated good in all cases with no adverse effects. And I think, talking about the future now, we need to do quite a bit more to cement this drug into our slaaptassies. We've got all that, the availability will be hopefully good. Johan is still struggling quite a bit with that. To me, fentanyl citrate would be the opioid of choice in ungulate immobilization from camps or from the helicopter. In all instances on where I'm standing at the moment. And for me, butorphanol in white rhinos will still be the end. And this might be the end of my talk, but it might be the end of us being, have to have potent opioids in our repertoire. But as I say, I'm not doing a lot of wildlife work, so don't believe everything that I'm saying. This is what my office looks like lately. So it will be for you guys to take it forward, but I definitely think that it is one of the drugs that we need to use in the wildlife industry. Thank you. Any questions?